Sabres Live is presented by Seneca Resorts and Casinos. Nothing else comes close.
We are going to overtime.
It is, in fact, feeling like overtime as we get towards the trade deadline, Marty. It's like the clock is constantly ticking. How many more moves will be made? And I have to think, like, this is a fascinating time for you, for other netminders, for those who've lived the pro goaltending experience. Not only are you looking ahead, potentially to those incredible playoff games when those moments arrive, but just getting there. And if there's uncertainty right now, man, it must wear on your nerves. I applaud you and our guest today, Mike McKenna, for navigating all those years in various places along the way. How would you describe Mike before he joins us today?
Oh, well, Mike obviously has been around the block a time or two. He has traveled through all three pro leagues, East Coast Hockey League, American Hockey League, National Hockey League, but he's a student of the game. His detailed work on goaltender, and he does a lot of also consulting work with young goaltenders in the college ranks and in youth hockey. So his detailed work is impeccable. The only problem with him is he caught the wrong hand. So that's what made him weird. But other than that, he's a pretty normal guy.
He's been doing outstanding work with the ever-evolving Daily Faceoff, and we thank all of them for their incredible work here leading up to the deadline. And I thought Mike was terrific in his role as an analyst on the Vegas broadcast for a few seasons. And when you're serious about the game, bet on Buffalo at the only sports books in Western New York. Seneca Resorts and Casinos betting counters are open daily. Self-service betting kiosks are available 24/7 at all three locations. Whether you visit Seneca, Niagara, Allegheny, or Buffalo Creek, the Sports Lounge features the latest lines and multiple screens, so you never miss a play. The sports book at Seneca Resorts and Casinos, where the love of the game meets the thrill of the win. Mike, the hours are rapidly ticking away here towards the deadline. There have already been big stories, and the John Quick one was a little out of left field in the sense of legacy with the Kings and probably some tough feelings for John. What more are you anticipating here with Quick and other goalies before the deadline?
I kind of had a batting order regarding goalies I thought would get traded, and it was a short list. Quick was not on that list because I didn't see him as being a target. I didn't see him as being an answer to a team who needed help in the playoffs. Just because, frankly, it's been 5 years since we've seen Jonathan Quick perform at his best level in the NHL over a consistent season. So I had Korpisalo probably number 2 on my list. I had Cam Talbot as number 1, but Korpisalo were kind of interchangeable with one another, I would say. So for a team like LA to take on Korpisalo, I'm not very surprised. He's a very dynamic, athletic goaltender who's having a great resurgent season coming off of hip surgery this past off season. And I think, Marty, you think about how playing hurt can affect you. Korpisalo the last 2 seasons was never healthy in Columbus. And we saw that really hurt his level of play. And this year, to me, Marty, he's been very good. He's been miles better than Elvis Merzlikins, his goalie partner there. Problem is that he's a UFA, and Columbus has Merzlikins and Daniil Tarasov on one-ways next year. So I think it was smart biz by Jarmo Kekalainen to move Korpisalo out, and on LA's part, to bring him in playing good hockey and put him in tandem with Phoenix Copley, who's done an admirable job. But I don't think they viewed him as the answer in playoffs.
Well, that's the thing. It's a big question mark in LA, right? Can Phoenix Copley win your playoff round? He's won games, but his numbers have not been, rocking anybody's world right now. So could that allow Copley to maybe play a little less, more quality, less quantity, Korpisalo to maybe give you a boost? I like that. But for me, it's the hard decision to say to a Kings legend who's won cups with them and was like an all world, right? Like Jonathan Quick, he actually revolutionized a lot of how the goalies play now with the reverse VH and all of that. He was not just a really good goaltender. In my opinion, not on Patrick Roy's level, but the same way Patrick changed the way of the game by the butterfly and everything, Jonathan Quick, I think, changed a lot of what the goalies do now with their low to the ice play and everything. And then making that move, I probably the hardest thing Rob Blake and Luc Robitaille have had to do over years is to say to Jonathan Quick, we've traded you to Columbus. I mean, that's a tough one.
It is. And I wonder if it's a grenade in the locker room. That's the one part that I worry is if there's any lasting ramifications from this. I mean, teams get over things pretty quickly, but this one's going to sting, man. Like to me, Quick's a surefire Hall of Famer. No doubt in my mind. 2 Stanley Cups, a Conn Smythe. I mean, he's the greatest American-born goaltender, arguably, of all time. Him and Ryan Miller, I think.
You remember right, this is a Buffalo pod here. You got to get Miller one. You're going to get hate mail.
Here's the thing. Ryan Miller deserves more credit than he gets. He didn't win the cups. And you know how that works with the Hockey Hall of Fame. If you don't win the cups, I mean, which is crazy because Tom Barrasso's not in there. Mike Vernon's not in there. We could go down the list of guys that probably deserve it. But I just think it's for Quick. It's just like, man, you spend your whole career with one franchise to get dumped off at the end in a salary cap move. You think that LA could have done it some other way. But realistically, it is just business. And I'll tell you, it's about as weird as when Marty Brodeur finished his career as a St. Louis Blue. Yeah. Because I don't see Quick playing beyond this year. I just don't. I think this is it.
Do you see him playing in Columbus? I don't. Do you think somebody takes him as an insurance policy now for a draft pick?
Good question. I could see Columbus doing a lot of things, right? They just got draft capital out of this deal. Now they've got 2 first-round picks. They've got 2/3 coming in the next couple of rounds. I could see them going after Chychrun real easily, try to make that deal, and then maybe flipping Quick out. But I don't see Quick's value. I wouldn't want Quick at all. I am dragging on one of the greatest goalies here, but man, I don't trust his game whatsoever. There's been a huge difference between him and Copley this year. And Copley's a career number 3 journeyman, which is basically me. Copley caught a good bounce. I wish I caught that bounce at some time in my life. I never got that one.
Yeah, that's true with Quick. But again, you talked Chychrun, and your partner at dailyfaceoff.com, Frank Saravalli, said, well, maybe Columbus tries to get Chychrun and flips Quick down to Arizona. Maybe Arizona looks to trade Vejmelka, who's on you guys' list at number 39, I believe, on the trade bait, but only the second goalie left out there, Talbot, and then Vejmelka. Let's talk Karel Vejmelka quickly, because Duffer was the one a couple of years ago that saw him in training camp and was like, that's the best goalie they got in Arizona. And he loves him because he catches like you, Mike, with the right hand, and Duffer is a southpaw. So is there a market for Karel Vejmelka? I actually don't trust him on a good team. I think he's a good goalie on a bad team. I don't know that I trust him on a good team, but is there a market for Vejmelka right now?
You got to look at who's going to want him. Is he coming in to be the savior for a playoff team? That's not what I don't see. I see him as an ancillary piece right now, either a 1A or a 1B, or maybe on a team that's mid-level thinking that they're going to move up. The one team out there that I'm intrigued by, Marty, I can't help but wonder if Jersey thinks Vanacek's enough, because you can't keep Blackwood healthy. Ugh. I wonder about it, right? Wouldn't Vejmelka kind of fit in that role? I know what you just said about good or bad team, but I wouldn't mind that. You got some cost certainty with that deal. A Vanacek-Vejmelka combo, that'd be pretty nice for me. And even looking around the league at other clubs that may need a longer-term solution in net, how many of them exist? Ottawa, there's one. Talbot's not coming back there. So you just have Forsberg. Sogard's not ready. I think there could be a market for Vejmelka. It would have to be kind of a specific fit. And like I say, I don't think he's coming in to be, your playoff savior. I think he's a growth piece at a cost-controlled dollar figure. So did you have anybody in mind, Marty, you thought he could potentially fit with?
Well, no, but you mentioned New Jersey, and I always think of the numbers, right? But if you put Blackwood on long-term IR and you free yourself the $2.5 million that he is, and Vejmelka is at 2.75, all of a sudden you can make it work. But it's also, well, is Blackwood really hurt that he could go on long-term IR? And then you think about next year, I think New Jersey could be a spot. Yes, but I don't see teams that need goaltending around the NHL that are in this kind of a weird situation right now. Vegas, right? Vegas, Logan Thompson at the start of the season, I was like, yeah, let's see what he's got. And now the injury, and now Laurent Brossois' potential injury as well. There's a need there. They're first in the Pacific. They are first in the Western Conference. And
how is the Pacific? How is the Pacific? Vegas, LA, Seattle. based on what everybody would have said about their goaltending going into the year. And even now,
Well,
like there's so many questions.
Here's the thing about Vegas. They got a lot of goalies, but do they have game-changing healthy goalies? Okay, now Thompson at the start of the year was insulated by incredible defense around him from Bruce Cassidy when he came in and established that. And Thompson lived up to it, okay? Like just because you have good defense doesn't mean you're going to play great. He was very good at the start, and he's had flashes here and there throughout the season. But you've also seen teams learn how to pick him apart. There's parts to his game, as low as wide as he plays, as impatient as he is on his edges. Teams now see that. They can counter that. So it's been a cat and mouse with him. He's had flashes, but he's hurt now. Okay. Aiden Hill, I don't think you can trust him. He's playing street hockey for the most part. Laurent Brossoit looked amazing in his 3 games that came back, but now he's injured yet again and coming off a hip surgery, and Michael Hutchinson's there. Well, the Leafs tried him. Colorado tried him. They got a lot of goalies that they consider NHL goalies, but how many of them are at this stage somebody you can depend upon? And Vegas, they still got a lot of cap space left, man. Like Barbashev didn't chew up a lot of it. When's the last time Vegas didn't use up every penny of the salary cap? There's no way with them leading the Pacific and a fairly easy route out of the West that they don't load up. There's been smoke around Talbot to Vegas, amongst others. I could easily see it happening, but I just don't know how they figure it out with as many goalies as they have. I think somebody would have to go the other direction.
I actually thought Talbot maybe a week and a half ago was going to be a really easy goalie target for a team that's in need. I don't see it anymore in Ottawa. They're 64 points. They're, 5 points back of a playoff spots right now. And they beat Detroit back-to-back games, and their rentals, the Brassard, Hamonic, Talbot, I don't think are going anywhere. I wouldn't do it if I was the Senators. So who's left? The goalie market is not a strong market already. It was more of a secondary piece. Now people are talking Thatcher Demko. I'm like, wait a second. Number one, why are Vancouver even thinking of trading Thatcher Demko? But they would never get the return that they need for him. Like I just don't see a name that we've been discussing getting moved right now.
Yeah, no, I think that market it's a soft market, and it's not a big buyer's market in both directions. Who are your best goalies available? My number 3 goalie available on the list as far as UFAs is Thomas Greiss. And he's just a depth piece, right? Like he's a guy that if you're, and listen, this will drive people crazy, but if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs and you decide we need a third guy or somebody we can just stash or a backup, maybe you get a Greiss, at this stage. The only team out there that I see that's still in need, I think, is Pittsburgh. Jari with his injury problems, DeSmith, could he win you a Stanley Cup? That team has to make playoffs. They have to, Marty. Like you guys see him all the time. Yeah. I think Talbot could fit there. But again, I think something has to kind of go back the other direction towards Ottawa to make that work. So could a Talbot, DeSmith flop out work for those 2 clubs? I could see that. But you're right. There's just not that many teams, I think, that are in dire need of it besides LA and Pittsburgh I had targeted. And Demko, yeah, I think if anything, he's an off-season move. I wouldn't see that right now at the trade deadline. There's no real choke point to get rid of him. And I think also, Marty, if you're an NHL GM, don't you want to see Demko play some good hockey again? Like it's been a tough year for him.
I would want him to. I would want to see how he can bounce back from. He's had injuries in college ranks and now in the NHL, yeah. So I would want to see how he bounces back. But again, if I could get Demko on a bit of a cheaper, like I like Thatcher Demko when he's healthy. Like last year, I had him in my top 10, 12 goalies entering this season. Yeah, obviously not healthy, and Vancouver was a shit show, if we could say that, but we can. We're on the podcast, so that's good. But they were a shit show all year, so it doesn't work for Thatcher Demko right now. But I would definitely throw my hat in the ring to see what the return would be.
Well, if you're Vegas and you just painted it so clearly, Mike, because they always go for it, they always max out the cap. Like, would they be better suited going aggressively on Demko or Gibson or somebody else?
I wouldn't touch Gibson. Gibson's right in quick territory for me. Listen, there's a batch of goalies in the NHL that haven't updated their game in 6-7 decade years. Quick, Gibson being at the top of the list. Okay. And I wouldn't trust them at all. Like, there's the structural element of their game doesn't exist compared to throw a dart at the board and hit a Russian goaltender. Okay. When you want structure, when you want consistency, Sorokin, Shesterkin, Vasilevsky, Kochetkov, who's in the American Hockey League right now, and he's going to be the big guy for the Canes sooner rather than later. What do they all have in common? Unbelievable body control, and an amazing ability to stay between their posts, to not chase the game. That's not Quick. That's not Gibson. I'm not touching them. But if I'm Vegas, I don't know what the answer is in the crease. That's the hard part. And the team that I thought for Demko, I've thought all along, LA Kings. He's a Southern California guy. Yes. Man, what if Korpisalo just ends up being a rental? What if they don't take a big swing at Demko in the offseason? I would love Demko in LA. I would love that fit. But I don't know about a Gibson. Does it? The thing is, Marty, don't you get this feeling that Quick and Gibson? I think it's finally past where GMs realize Quick isn't what he used to be.
Yeah.
But I still see these top 10 articles, top 10 goalies in the league, and Gibson's still in the mix. And I'm
Forget about it. Forget about it. Seriously. Okay, so here's how, and this may be really, really bad coming from a guy that wore the same skates for his whole career. Since my second year in juniors until my last day in the NHL, I wore the same skates, okay? But there was no advancement in the skate, like in the development of skates throughout my career. Now, I can tell you this, that for about the last 10 years, okay, goalie skates have gone from the clunky old skates that we used to wear to the new streamlined, better edge control, better edge. John Gibson still wears his old Bowers or CCM from 2008 type of skate, and I'm like, upgrade to the new game. Like, that doesn't work. There's still some goalies out there that wear the old clunky shells and the white cowlings or whatever. Yep. I'm like, it doesn't play into today's game. So maybe people are going to say that's way too elementary to think of skates give you the look of the goaltenders, but it's part of the whole picture. And John Gibson is exactly that.
It's part of that for all goaltenders. Look at Jack Campbell in Edmonton.
Oh yeah.
It took a puck going through his glove, and frankly, I wrote an article that shamed his equipment. And right before Christmas, he suddenly switches to more modernized Brian's equipment, other than
which doesn't really work for him. It doesn't fit him. I would have gone maybe to a different Vaughn updated equipment, but I don't know that the Brian's looks so stiff on him. Again, I don't know why, but
this is the point. Like, he hadn't upgraded at all. He's just running out the same old 10-year-old pattern stuff. Quick was the same way. It took Samsonov forever to upgrade his gear. Mm-hmm. Like in Washington, just big old strapped on pads, the old school straps. Gibson, I think, still has old straps. He maybe went to Velcro too. I always worry about that when I see goaltenders that aren't willing to upgrade equipment.
Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yeah, right? Fleury can't let it. But Fleury went to composite sticks this year. Finally, that was a big advancement for Flowers.
Thank God.
But I do always wonder about seeing goaltenders that won't upgrade their equipment, because to me that's a microcosm that they're not willing to update more than that. How much are you willing to adapt your game if you can't take modern technology and equipment and apply it? You should be able to take all that and take advantage of it.
Yes.
Am I wrong to think of Artur Zerbe and Jamie Storr when we're having this discussion?
Urbe used to have the team bus run over his gear. That's the story I heard.
Yeah, when he got the new co-hosts that looked like the old ones, and he did have, but again, different times, right? Where goalies, when Artur Zerbe and Jamie Storr were playing, like my first few years, we would have the same set of gear the whole season and start the next year with the same set and maybe broke a set halfway, like a year and a half. Mm-hmm. Now goalies have 5 pairs of pads, 8 sets of gloves throughout the years. Mm-hmm. Like, it just, it upgrades very easily. So it's different, but you're right. Like, that's what John Gibson and others have stayed in the past instead of moving in the future.
Mike, we don't want to keep you forever on here, but we do have a couple of more topics to really hit on. And obviously we're going to exclude. Marty and I are going to remove ourselves from this discussion because we're too close to it. Can you tell us what people like you, how you view Buffalo's goaltending this year and where you see it going in the short and long-term future?
Well, the long-term future, I think, is easy for me to answer. And that goaltender's at Northeastern University right now named Devin Levi. This guy's sick. Just go watch highlights of him in the Bean Pot or anywhere else he's played recently, World Junior Championships a couple of years ago. To me, I don't care if he's 6 foot tall. This guy's going to be a star in the NHL. I fully believe that. As far as this year, though, listen, I understand trying to wedge in youthful goaltending with Luukkonen, who's had stretches that I've liked. I understand why Eric Comrie was someone that the Sabres should have believed in when they signed him to a 2-year deal. You know, his advanced numbers were good. The way he plays from a technical standpoint, good, tracks well and things. Craig Anderson's been the best goalie in Buffalo. And he's not playing as much as the other guys, right? You know, or on a consistent basis.
But I'm supposed to remove myself. Sorry, Duffer. I got in there. I couldn't help myself. I was itching. Sorry, keep going, Mike.
Yeah. So, you know, for me, I think that crease is just kind of a mess right now. And when you got 3 guys all going for it, who are you going to run with? You know, Luukkonen's been getting the wins. Okay. But boy, the other night I'm watching clips and I see him. I'm trying to think of who it was against, but you know, he makes a save on a routine point shot. And he's a foot outside of his crease and the rebound goes right in front of him and kicks off to his right, pass off to the right.
That was Washington
against Washington. Thank you. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, non-goalies especially, would look at that goal and go, oh, he had no chance. And I look at it and go, bullshit. If he would have just stayed in his crease, first, he would have been able to absorb the initial shot from the point because he would have had a little bit more time to adjust and eat that. And then second, even if it does bounce off of him into the slot, and then there's a pass over to his right side, he would have only had to travel 3.5 feet instead of 8 feet to try to get to his post and make that second save. You know, so there's these shades of aggressiveness of him that worry me at times. And I think he'll defer to paddle down when he's reaching. He'll get kind of locked. I think with Luukkonen, he can play amazing games against teams that don't lift the puck. Okay. He's gotten killed high glove, and I think he covers low really well. Comrie, I'm disappointed with Comrie because I really believed in him at the start of the year. I still think he's probably a pretty good backup at the NHL level, but I see why they're calling about goalies, right? Why there's been reports that they've looked at goalies. You know, can Andy do another 9? I mean, Andy has like the 3rd highest save percentage in playoff history in the NHL, man. He's like a 927 or something. But could he really play 22 playoff games door to door? I don't think so. So
I can tell you he can't. But okay, so what do you do? And I said that before. It's a hard decision for Kevin Adams because they made the point to keep 3 goalies, which long-term 3 goalies absolutely sucks. And you've been a part of some 3 goalie, circus that it's awful. But what do you do here? You've got, 21 games left. Duffer, do we have 21, 20, whatever it is?
3 games remaining, and they are in the hunt. That's the thing here, right, Mike?
And this team believes, and the players there all believe that Kevin Adams has created a great culture. They like their coach. It's a good vibe, dude. Like, I have them making the playoffs. But I think you're probably going to have to run Luukkonen out there 2 out of every 3 and play Andy 1 out of every 3. And, if somebody gets hurt, maybe Eric hops in there. I mean, if you're looking realistically, you have to look at the win column. Luukkonen's had most of those. So it's not going to be an easy decision for Granato. And I think basically you just have to hope that Thompson and the boys keep filling the net, because that's been the greatest strength of the Sabres.
And hope that they put lead in the puck and the other team can't raise the puck, as you pointed out, because that has been my thing too. Your breakdown on Luukkonen was exactly my breakdown on Luukkonen. I don't think he tracks the puck really well. He defers to sliding and protecting the low ice. He's really good around the net, but as soon as you're 35 feet out and making shots, it's an adventure after that. So I like that. I like that. I tried to say shut up and couldn't do it either.
You did a great job. Let me rattle through a few names here, and Mike, if there's any of them that are worthy of a follow, like Varlamov,
he's not going anywhere.
Reimer.
Reimer.
It was quiet.
Well, I mean, listen, James, if you need a third goalie, go ahead and get James. But he's been a quality number 2 his whole career. He's never played more than like 41 games in a season. So
Antti Ranta.
He's going to be hurt. Big risk.
You don't
I'm
think
just dealing with reality here, man.
Carolina's just going to keep their 3, right?
See, I honestly, if I were Carolina, I would want to keep all 3.
Yes. Yeah.
But
I
that's
agree.
with the eye to the future, and also knowing that Kochetkov, I still think Kochetkov could be the guy in playoffs for
and
that
that
team.
Anderson and Ranta are often hurt.
Correct. You have to have all 3 with them. I know that Varlamov, unless something insane happens, will not be moved. Lou Lamoriello loves having both of those goaltenders. It is the greatest strength of the Islanders. Ilya Sorokin, to me, top 2 goalie in the world. And I think Varlamov he'd be a number 1 for any other team, but he likes being there. The team likes having both of them, and they have no safety net. Corey Schneider's the only guy left there if one of those 2 moves on. So,
yeah. And is there one team that is presumably carrying very big expectations that you are most concerned about with their goaltending?
That is a great question. I'm not concerned with Boston. Not concerned with Tampa Bay. I'm not concerned with Carolina because that 3-headed monster, somebody's going to come out of and do pretty well. I don't think the goalie's going to make a big difference. Toronto is the one I worry about. And I look at everything Kyle Dubas has done to make that team better. And I actually think he maybe has done too much. I worry about chemistry on that team with the amount of turnover that's happened, but I understand why he's done it. Mm-hmm. But you're still telling me Ilya Samsonov, who couldn't grab an NHL crease in the postseason last year for the Washington Capitals or over the course of 3 full seasons, is going to be your guy when he's been coming back down to earth since the start of the year. Matt Murray? Nope. He's not going to be healthy. And when he's been healthy, it's been all over the place anyway. Teams know how to beat him. I worry about Toronto because I said at the start of the year, and I hold to this, no matter what the Leafs do, no matter what Kyle Dubas does to that lineup, if they bow out of the playoffs and it's goaltending, that's it. He's done. It's because of goaltending. He didn't fix the goaltending. And the problem is they're still about a year away from having a real stud in Joseph Woll if he's ever healthy. And that's a question. That kid can play. But it's no guarantee,
What about this, Mike? Quick this or that follow-up. Which one do you have more confidence in? Stuart Skinner and the Oilers as a group, or Toronto with Samsonov? Which one, this or that?
I'd go with the Oilers. And here's why. I think when Campbell gets on a run and he's confident and patient, tracking well, he is a damn good goalie at times. It's just that Jay Woodcroft, if he goes with Campbell to start playoffs, is going to have to know when to get him the hell out of the net and get Skinner in. Because I think that working in tandem, they can actually accomplish. You can't ride one of them too long. I've liked Skinner for most of his time this year. I think he's consistent. I don't know if he's a series stealer, but he's consistent. Whereas Campbell, he rides that wave. So I think I have more confidence just because you got a 2-headed monster there. Whereas Toronto, like I say, man, I don't bank on Murray being healthy, and that's your first thing. Like if you're not there, you can't play. So at least it seems to me Edmonton's got 2 bullets in the chamber, whereas I think Toronto's got 1 3/4 because Woll and Murray are both injury prone.
What does Calgary have in the chamber, and will they make the playoffs?
You know what, Calgary, I think I did a deep dive on Markstrom. I watched every single goal he allowed this year. And Markstrom has allowed some head scratchers. Okay. He's probably allowed 4, 5, 6 goals this year that just make you go, what the hell? And I think that plays out bad from a visual standpoint. But aside from those, it's been backdoors and rush chances. And the only critique of his game I really have is that on rushes and breakaways, he gets really low and wide and he gets ripped upstairs. And he doesn't move very well laterally because of it. But they're also allowing these catastrophic chances against. So I don't have concerns with Calgary's goaltending. I have concerns with how they play. I have bigger concerns with how much what that team thinks of their head coach. I don't think they're having any fun in Calgary. And I think that that's a toxic place to be as a team. And I don't know how you fix that. And that's just my honest assessment of it. I don't know how you're going to overcome that because they haven't all season. They've been mediocre all season long.
Amazing. I love it. I love goalies, Mike. To have both of you on here today was absolutely sensational. Continued great coverage with Daily Faceoff. We've enjoyed it immensely. We'll see you soon.
Thanks. I wish we had more time. This was fun.
Thank you, Marty, for getting Mike on the podcast this week. Honestly, I could have just sat there and listened for hours. And what's so amazing about sports, and especially the goaltending position, is when the unexpected happens.
Yes.
Think about Ottawa acquiring Cam Talbot, but giving up Philip Gustafson. And the Wild aren't anywhere close because they're being patient with Jesper Wallstedt, and they retain Fleury. And now all of a sudden, nobody's really talking about Minnesota's goaltending because Gustafson has emerged as a top 3. And he's 24 years old.
I actually scratched my head when Dean Avison is like, Marc-Andre Fleury is going to start that night. I'm like, why? Why are you doing that? Like, Philip Gustafson is the third best goaltender in the National Hockey League when you look at goals saved above expected per game. It's Linus Ullmark, Ilya Sorokin, which should be there, and then it's Philip Gustafson. He gives them a chance to win every night and keeps the total low. Again, this time of year, they win a lot of 2-1, 3-2 games, but that's the way Minnesota is built, and Gustafson's a big part of that.
2 more names to touch on before we sign off on this goalie edition of Sabres Live Overtime. We haven't even talked about the defending champions and how they feel about the first year with Georgiev. Do they feel good? Should they feel good? Have you liked them?
I've liked him. I've liked Georgiev, who has settled down. I felt like he was so angry with the Rangers all the time, maybe because he was behind Lundqvist and Shesterkin and wanted to play more. He started the season angry, and then he settled down, and he looks very much under control. I have liked Georgiev, and the more work he's getting now, the better he's playing.
Maybe he didn't like one of his teammates in New York.
Yeah, that is somebody that got moved and now is in Philadelphia.
Yes, and last one for you, because we've discussed it before, and the deadline is still to come. And Nashville doesn't look like it's going to be a playoff team. And they've moved Ekholm, one of the great character players organizationally, in my opinion, from a distance. Is it possible that somebody comes really, really aggressively towards Nashville to try to get UC Saros?
You're talking about a monumental trade. If Nashville was able to move Saros, 2 years left at $5 million, which is so cheap for him, the quality of goaltending, that has to be a master of a package going back to Nashville. Now, think of who's replacing David Poile this summer, right? It's going to be Barry Trotz. Barry Trotz always has had solid goaltending everywhere he's gone. Even Braden Holtby winning the cup, like that was Holtby at his close to his best. And then Sorokin, Varlamov in New York. Before that, Pekka Rinne in Nashville for years. There has to be a solid goaltender. So I think Barry Trotz, if he wants to be known as the guy that lets UC Saros go at some point, or help, because he's still not the GM now, not until July 1, well, you better get a monster of a return. So I just don't think it's going to happen because of the change of leadership in Nashville.
It would definitely become the talking point of this year's trade deadline.
Yes.
Marty, thank you. Thank you to Mike McKenna. Thanks to all the goalie gurus out there who enjoyed this one. We'll see you soon.